I'd like to call this council and committee meeting to order. We acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Attawandaronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect. And the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. Mr. Clerk, the roll call, please.
Your Worship, Councillor Noyes is absent. All other members of Council are present.
Thank you. Just have a few announcements. There is an addendum. We've now received a report and comments from District School Board of Niagara with respect to report PBBS 10-2026, which is the proposed rezoning bylaw amendment information recommendation report regarding 825 Garrison Road. And just some very brief announcements. I wanted to thank those individuals who organized and attended a small rally here last week to express their concerns about the personal initiative of the regional chair with respect to amalgamations. There were a number of people here. I know that the media was here as well, and I want to thank them for taking their own initiative with respect to a matter which is existential with respect to this community. I attended on Saturday evening the dinner celebrating the 95th anniversary of the Ridgeway Lions Club. That organization obviously was chartered in January of 1931. That was the same year that Bridgeburg, Fort Erie, and Amagiri created the town of Fort Erie as it existed until regional government in 1970. It was the same year that Douglas Memorial Hospital was opened in October, and as I told the group Saturday night, it was also the year my mother was born, and so that was somewhat significant for me. Next year, I believe, is the 100th anniversary of the Fort Erie Lions Club, which was the charter club for the Ridgeway Lions. And finally, I just want to make reference to the fact that I was alerted this morning by Councillor McDermott that Fort Erie International Academy basketball team won its third Ontario Basketball Association championship. That's for private schools, and that was as a result of a thrilling 64-62 victory over Ridley College. So congratulations. I look forward to the opportunity to recognize those young athletes at one of our council meetings. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, there is an upcoming open house for a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 240 Jarvis Street. That will take place Tuesday, March 24th, 2026 at 5 p.m. in the atrium here at Town Hall. And also there's a public open house on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, 5:30 to 7 p.m. here at Town Hall in the atrium, and that's with respect to the Bridgeburg North secondary plan. Okay. There is a public meeting this evening. That public meeting relates to a zoning bylaw amendment for 825 Garrison Road. And the owner is a numbered corporation, care of Paul DeFrancesco. This meeting is pursuant to the Planning Act, and so the process will be, we will hear from a member of staff providing us with some background information. That individual is subject to being questioned by members of council with respect to the information he provides. That will be Devin Morton. Then after he is finished, we will hear from the developer or the agent on behalf of the developer. And again, that individual can be questioned by members of council. After that, we'll ask if there is anyone who wishes, other than the applicant, to speak in favor of the application. I'll ask Mr. Patton if there's anyone in the digital waiting room that wishes to address council. And following that, I'll ask if there's anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application or who wishes to address council regarding the application. I will then go to Mr. Patton, see if there's anyone in the digital waiting room. Finally, I will ask the clerk if we have received any late communications relative to the application, and then we will proceed to deal with report PBBS 10/2026, which is staff's recommendation regarding the matter. So, Mr. Morton, you're up. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public in attendance this evening. My name is Devin Morton, and I am the Supervisor of Development Approvals with the Town of Fort Erie. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide information and a recommendation to Council as it relates to a zoning bylaw amendment application for land located at 825 Garrison Road. The application was submitted by Upper Canada Consultants, care of Nicholas Godfrey, on behalf of the owners, a numbered Ontario company, care of Paul DiFrancesco. That would help. Maybe if you can just go to the next slide for me. It's not working. Great, thanks, Cole. So notice of today's public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act by updating the sign placed on the subject land and by circulating a notice of public meeting electronically and by regular mail on February 9th, 2026 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject land. The proposed application is subject to a 90-day processing and review timeline. The timeline began the day the applications were deemed complete, being December 8th, 2025, and will conclude the day Council makes a decision with respect to the applications. Currently, we are at the public meeting and information and recommendation report stage and day 91 of the 90-day timeline. Next, thank you. So as confirmed here, the subject land is located on the south side of Garrison Road, east of Craft Road and west of Helena Street in the Craft neighborhood. Next slide, please. The subject land is approximately 1.28 hectares in area and contains a single detached dwelling, accessory building, provincially significant wetland, a portion of, other wetland, and other woodland. The subject lands are also surrounded by the following uses. So to the north, a regional right-of-way being Garrison Road, single detached dwellings including a designated heritage property located at 848 Garrison Road, and low-density commercial buildings. That's okay. So to the east, vacant lands including a provincially significant wetland and other woodland. To the south, vacant lands. And to the west, vacant lands and single detached dwellings. So as you can see here, sorry, next slide, Cole. As you can see here, the application proposes development of a 6-story, 100-unit residential rental apartment building with 145 at-grade vehicular parking spaces with landscaping and planted islands, all while maintaining an appropriate buffer to adjacent natural and cultural heritage features. Staff note, affordable housing units are not proposed currently. However, the inclusion of affordable housing units is strongly encouraged. Additionally, Council may elect to apply funds collected under the community benefits charge to supply affordable housing units should they so choose. This consideration would be addressed formally at the site plan control stage. Next slide, please. So here we have conceptual building elevations of the proposed apartment building. Next slide, please. Followed by some conceptual floor plans. So, and if I could just take a quick moment to highlight the range of unit types being proposed. So based on the floor plans, it appears 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units are proposed. Staff commend the applicant for the proposed family-friendly unit mix and for avoiding an oversupply of 1 bedroom and studio apartments. Next slide, please. So I've also included the applicant's color demonstration plan, just for a little bit more clarity with respect to the landscaping and site circulation. It appears the proposed apartment building is centrally located on the subject land and responds to constraints posed by natural heritage features, including a provincially significant wetland, other wetland, and other woodland. Next slide, please. So Schedule A land use plan of the town's official plan designates the subject land urban residential and environmental protection. It's hard to see on this, but there is a small portion of the environmental protection. The urban residential designation supports a variety of housing forms, including the proposed apartment building, and the environmental protection designation supports conservation activities, flood and erosion control, forestry, fish and wildlife management, passive recreation, and other uses permitted by the natural hazard policies of the official plan. To clarify, the application proposes development of an apartment building on the portion of land designated urban residential. There is no development proposed on lands designated environmental protection. Next slide, please. Furthermore, in accordance with the recent council-adopted official plan 2025, the subject land is designated community area and is intended for intensification and higher density housing. Community planning staff have confirmed the proposal aligns with the town's adopted official plan 2025 and supports its vision to create complete, sustainable, and connected communities. Next slide, please. So with respect to zoning, subject lands are zoned residential 1R1 zone in the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The application proposes to rezone the subject land from the residential 1R1 zone, environmental protection EP zone, and environmental conservation EC overlay zone to a site-specific residential multiple 2 RM2 zone. The applicant has requested one site-specific modification under the RM2 zone related to minimum vehicular parking requirements. The reduced minimum parking requirement represents a modest departure from the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The relief sought results in the loss of 5 vehicular parking spaces to accommodate room for planted islands in accordance with review comments from staff. A parking rate ratio of 1.45 vehicular parking spaces per dwelling unit is maintained, thus providing 145 vehicular parking spaces. Beyond this, as the subject lands are located along Garrison Road and may in the future have improved access to public transit, staff support the requested modification. So although the application proposes to rezone the subject land to a site-specific RM2 zone, in accordance with comments received from our natural heritage staff, natural heritage features and most of their associated buffers are to be rezoned environmental protection. This recommendation further aligns with the EIS prepared by Ecological and Environmental Solutions and dated October 2025, submitted in support of the application. Furthermore, and in accordance with comments received from Development Engineering, a holding provision is recommended to apply to the subject lands until such time as the owner demonstrates capacity constraints at the Alliston Avenue sanitary pumping station and the downstream sanitary sewer network have been addressed to the satisfaction of the town's Director of Infrastructure Services. Any required infrastructure upgrades shall be implemented and sufficient sanitary servicing capacity demonstrated to accommodate the proposed development to the satisfaction of the town and the region at the owner's sole cost. Hold provision details are confirmed in development engineering comments. They're attached as Appendix 4 with respect to the specific infrastructure servicing or other works required to satisfy the conditions for lifting the holding symbol, the rationale for the holding symbol, including identification of the relevant infrastructure constraint or limitation, and the anticipated process. Based on the above, the draft zoning bylaw amendment brought to council at a future regular council meeting shall be prepared to include the recommended environmental protection zoning and holding provision. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I've displayed the relief sought just to facilitate the proposal. It's pretty self-explanatory here. As you'll notice, the only relief sought is with respect to the minimum parking requirements, and additional information is found within the staff report. Next slide, please. With respect to neighborhood context and character, the area truly is in transition with several residential, mixed-use, and commercial development projects in queue along Garrison Road. The area is characterized by existing low-density residential and commercial uses, including traditional retail and convenience shops and dine-in restaurants. Next slide, please. Furthermore, the area is supported by the Greater Fort Erie Secondary School, financial institutions, and a range of fast food businesses. Next slide, please. So here we have a view of the subject land looking north. Next slide. And east, south, and west. And here we have a list of all the different reports and studies that were submitted in support of the applications. All studies and reports are available for further inspection by contacting the planner assigned carriage of the file and by accessing the town's website. And more studies and reports continued. So a public information open house was held in the atrium of Town Hall on January 8th, 2026 at 5 p.m. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject land were notified of the open house via regular mail sent on December 8th, 2025. Town planning staff, the owner, applicant, and approximately 6 members of the public were in attendance. Comments overheard at the open house were related to increased drainage, insufficient landscaping and buffering, fencing, insufficient lot size, inappropriate building location, inadequate vehicle and pedestrian circulation and access, not enough space for snow storage, noise from odor and vehicles. So all of these items have been addressed through the presentation and/or staff report. However, I will address them briefly here as well. So regarding drainage must be contained on site, save and except if riparian rights are demonstrated. A lot grading and drainage plan would be required to be reviewed and approved by development engineering staff at the site plan control stage. With respect to landscaping and buffering, the proposal maintains the minimum landscaped area requirement of 25% and the minimum distance required between parking areas and drive aisles and residential zones of 3 meters. In accordance with the Heritage Impact Assessment prepared by Upper Canada Consultants, landscaping is provided to screen the parking area from 848 Garrison to address limited indirect visual impacts. A revised site plan dated February 26, 2026 has been submitted in support of the application that proposes the addition of planted islands throughout the parking area in response to staff comments. Regarding fencing, wooden closed-board fencing is recommended by development planning staff along the southerly and westerly interior lot lines, save and except within the other woodland boundary. Fencing will be again reviewed at site plan control stage. In terms of lot size, the lot is approximately 1.28 hectares in size and satisfies the minimum lot area requirement. Based on the submission materials submitted in support of the application, the lot can accommodate a 6-story apartment building with vehicular parking while protecting natural and cultural heritage features and limiting land use conflicts, including shadow and noise. Regarding building location, The proposed apartment building is centrally located on the subject land and responds to natural heritage constraints, being the PSW, other wetland, and woodland. Furthermore, no relief to the minimum front, interior, side, rear, or rear yards has been requested. Further, the proposed apartment appears to be located more than 40 meters from the westerly interior lot line, whereas 9.3 meters is required, and over 18 meters from the northerly front lot line, whereas 7.5 meters is required. With respect to access, a 7.5 meter wide access directly from Garrison Road, a designated regional road, is proposed with a 6 meter wide drive aisle to accommodate two-way traffic. So there's a 6 meter wide drive aisle that fans out essentially to 7.5 meters at the property limit. Furthermore, a 1.8 meter wide internal pedestrian walkway, a sidewalk, is provided for safe and proper site circulation. Regarding snow storage details will be finalized during the site plan control stage. However, the site plan proposes a minimum 3.05 meter buffer around the southerly and westerly perimeter of the parking area and landscaped and open spaced areas south and north of the proposed apartment building that appear acceptable for snow storage purposes. Lastly, with respect to noise and odor, noise from construction vehicles may be audible at times during construction. However, this is temporary. Noise and odor impacts from vehicles traversing Garrison Road are outside the scope of the application. And to mitigate perceived noise and odor impacts from vehicles entering, exiting, and maneuvering on the subject land, a wooden closed-board fence is recommended to be installed along the southerly and westerly interior lot lines. The parking area will also be landscaped with planted islands to assist in mitigating perceived noise and odor impacts, and no adverse noise or odor impacts are anticipated from vehicles associated with development of a residential apartment building. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. Councillor Christensen.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Morton. I just have one question, and it relates to the comments by the DSBN. They had no comment. And it's a 100-unit apartment building with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, which would appear to me to indicate families and children. Is there any, or do you have any data on, how many kids would be anticipated in a rental building, or is this a given? And I'm speaking within the context for the people who may be listening, with the context of awareness of the pressures on our high school and on our local elementary, both public and Catholic schools. So I'm just it's just a question.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. I don't have that data. Perhaps the agent, when they provide their presentation later, they may have something to that effect. It is something that we can certainly look into, and I would agree and hope that we get some families into this building with the family-friendly housing that they're providing. But beyond the comments that I received from DSBN that indicated that they had no concerns or comments, I don't have any more information beyond that.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. Just two quick questions. One, on the site plan for the property, I guess is the bottom southeast corner. It shows the staked woodlot boundary, and it shows the building being rather close to it. But if I'm reading this correctly, it's also showing the portion of the building within the 10-meter offset. And I don't know if maybe you can provide some context as to the why on that.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. So you are correct. Although the building is not encroaching into the actual feature itself, it is encroaching into the associated buffer. However, that was reviewed and looked at through the environmental impact statement that was submitted in support of the application. That has now been subsequently reviewed by our natural heritage staff, who expressed no concerns with that approach.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question I had, one thing that stuck out in this application was the offset positioning of the building, which I quite like, the idea of not everything being parking lots in front of buildings and kind of mixing stuff up along the way, along Garrison Road. But I'm just wondering, with respect to the loading and waste collection area being located in the front of the building, was there any discussion with that potentially being able to be relocated to the back portion of the building? And I only say that because it's the main street in town, and now we have potentially a loading waste bin area on the main street.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. I agree. What I would say is generally waste collection requirements we would look at through the site plan control stage. And I don't disagree, especially from an urban design perspective, that we don't want waste enclosures fronting onto one of our primary corridors in the town. With regard to waste collection, it generally is a regional responsibility unless they elect for private waste collection. So as long as they are able to maintain regional waste collection requirements, I would see no reason why we can't shift that enclosure. And I believe under the zoning bylaw, there would be some type of screening at minimum that would be required to kind of screen that from public view along Garrison. One other thing is, based on the landscape plan that I remember reviewing, there is some enhanced landscaping along the frontage. That was in accordance with the HIA recommendations to offset some of those visual impacts across the road. So I think that goes hand in hand with screening that waste enclosure from Garrison. But through site plan control, I think that's something that we could easily accommodate.
Okay, appreciate the clarity, and maybe the applicant will speak to that as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. In the report, it noted that 15% of the property is required to be barrier-free as to the building code. With that representing roughly 15 units, I see 5 wheelchair or handicap spots. Is there a requirement through code that would indicate how many barrier-free spots or wheelchair accessible spots should be provided for?
Thank you, through you. So you are correct. The OBC does establish a minimum threshold that they would have to hit with respect to barrier-free units. With respect to barrier-free parking, it's generally based off the number of required parking stalls. So with that said, under the zoning bylaw, I don't believe, but I'd have to double check with the numbers that we're dealing with, that there are requirements for barrier-free. Again, it's something I can pull up the zoning bylaw and have a quick look, but I don't believe there is a requirement. Although they are providing some. Just give me one moment. I know the section. Yeah, so based on this, because it's an apartment building, there doesn't seem to be a barrier-free requirement.
I don't know that the answer is exceptionally important this evening for this stage, but certainly as we get into site plan, if we can make sure that that's dealt with, it would seem to me to be a bit odd that for that size of a building, there wouldn't be some need for them, and 5 just doesn't seem like quite enough to me.
Yeah, so based on what I'm seeing, it's a percentage, actually. It's 2%. So I think I was correct in the number of required parking spaces. It's based off that, which they're providing, so they satisfy zoning. If we would like to see some additional barrier-free parking spaces through the site plan control phase, I'm sure that's something that the applicant would be willing to accommodate. But yeah, based on the zoning, I think it's 2%.
Anything further, Councillor Flagg?
Nothing, Your Worship, thank you.
Anyone else? So, Mr. Morton,
Mm-hmm.
do we have any idea what the height of this building will be at 6 stories?
Yep, so those details are confirmed in the drawings and in the staff report. If you'd like, I can pull that up. I think it's,
See that in the report.
yeah, I think it's 9.3 meters or something.
Well, that would only be 30-something feet. Anyways, I can ask the agent for the applicant. In terms of can you pull up the sketch or the site plan so that we can identify where the sidewalk will be?
Sure. Cole, do you mind? Keep going. I think it's slide 4. There you go, just past, yep. So
it looks like there's a bit of it comes in off of Garrison Road, then kind of zags towards the east and then down along the front of the building, is that it?
That's correct. It might be actually easier to see, Cole, if you could flip to the color demo. Forward, I think 2 slides, maybe 1 more. There we go. So you can see the lighter gray makes it a little easier to discern.
That means there's a clear 7.5 meters for vehicular traffic in off of Garrison Road.
That's correct.
And
So it tapers out to 7.5 at the property line, and then everything internal would maintain that minimum 6-meter drive aisle.
Right.
With the 1.8 meter wide sidewalk above and beyond that.
Right. And you've indicated that the modification in the required parking is acceptable to staff. And that's primarily because this would be on a public transit route.
In addition to the other justifications, so it allows for the addition of these planted islands, thereby, reducing the presence of impermeable surfaces, allowing additional landscaping to help with noise and odor, offset urban heat island effects. I mean, there's quite a bit of rationale, I guess, with respect to why that would be supported. But in addition to the fact that Garrison Road, fingers crossed, will at some point, host some higher order transit.
Well, it will starting in May, but aside from those other considerations that you've mentioned, have you as staff factored in the fact that this is a rural community and really to get many places, you need to have a vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
If there are 100 units, some of them, perhaps the tenants will have no vehicle, some of them they'll only have 1, but there will be some that will have 2.
Yep,
And you've taken that into account?
correct.
Okay. In terms of the community benefit, is that strictly a monetary amount that the municipality can require?
Through you, so generally it's 4% of the value, and similar to, I believe, the approach we took on 1023 Arthur, where we were looking for affordable housing units, I'm assuming that's the same approach we'd be taking here, if that's the will of council.
Yeah, that would certainly be something that I think that staff should be looking at. And I know that there's been a tree preservation plan prepared.
That's correct.
So we know that there's going to be something like 84 trees removed, some of which are invasive species. Do we know how many trees will be actually preserved on site?
Through you, Chair. So essentially everything on the eastern portion of the site can't be touched because it's part of that natural heritage feature. Okay. It's really the western portion of the property where the majority of the tree removal will be located. And as you can see, there obviously is some replanting on the west side to accommodate for that, and anything that can't be accommodated would be collected by way of payment in lieu.
EAC, Mississaugas of the credit, and staff are all supportive of invasive species being removed. Would that include invasive species in the natural heritage area?
It would.
Okay. And so under our policies, do we have anything that can direct the applicant to accommodate affordable housing units or a number of affordable housing units?
Thank you, Chair, through you. So it's my understanding that we do not have inclusionary zoning policies at the town of Fort Erie. So in a short answer is no.
All right. Is staff looking at that?
That's something that I'd have to confirm through our policy group.
And you'd have to be given direction from council.
That's correct.
With respect to the buffers from the natural area, I thought we had a policy with respect to what the buffer should be, but there's some indication that there's a modification of that?
Through you. So there are minimum buffers established with respect to the PSW, the provincially significant wetland. Those are established in the NOP. From my review of our official plan, we do not have prescribed minimum buffers to these natural heritage features. We defer to the NOP, which establishes a minimum 30 meters for that PSW.
Okay, and then finally, in terms of the issue that Councillor Lewis raised about the location of the waste and loading, wouldn't it be easier for us at this stage just to indicate to the developer that we prefer that it be away from the highway and not visible in any fashion?
Through you. So I believe it's no surprise. I mean, the agent's behind me, so I think he's aware. And what I would say is that unless we build some kind of regulation into the zoning bylaw, site plan really is the most appropriate time to deal with waste collection routes, etc.
And what kind of influence do we have if the developer's insistent that it be where it currently is located, but we want it moved? What's our leverage?
Yeah, so generally through site plan control, you would refer to your site plan guidelines for best practice. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can say with confidence, best practice is not to locate those types of receptacles at the front of your property. We are also the approval authority for site plan control. So if we are not satisfied, then we do not issue site plan approval.
Well, that could be, but the developer also has the right to appeal to the OLC.
That's correct.
So before we come back with the bylaw on this, could you just make sure that we're solid on that
Moving that?
issue? Yeah,
Sure.
okay. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Morton.
Thank you.
So now I'll call upon the agent or the applicant, but the agent is in the,
Nicholas.
Mr. Godfrey?
Yeah.
Hello. Oh. Good evening.
Good evening. Staff, members of the public, I'm Nicholas Godfrey, Senior Planner with Upper Canada Consultants, and I'm here on behalf of the owner of the ownership group of the subject lands. And I'll provide a quick overview of the zoning bylaw amendment. I want to commend Devin. He did a very comprehensive job, so he's probably covered a lot of ground that I'm going to cover, but I'll just run through it in any case just to maybe add a little bit more context to the proposed development. Next slide, please. So as mentioned by Devin, the subject lands are situated on the south side of Garrison Road, west of Helena Street. And they're generally square in shape and approximately 1.277 hectares in area. And they have a lot frontage of approximately 100 meters along Garrison Road. They fall within the town of Fort Erie urban boundary. They're within the Craft neighborhood and are located within the delineated built-up area as defined by the Niagara official plan and designated urban residential and environmental protection in the town's official plan. Currently, the site contains a single detached dwelling, driveway, and a detached garage, and the property is primarily characterized as a manicured lawn with a few remnant fruit trees from historical agricultural use. Next slide, please. So our client proposes to construct a 6-story, 18.5 meter residential apartment containing approximately 100 dwelling units. The subject lands have a developable area of 0.957 hectares based upon the environmental constraints. And the building is situated in the middle and eastern portions of the site and has been designed to accommodate the natural heritage buffers along the eastern property boundary. The main entrance and lobby are accessed from an at-grade parking lot with ingress and egress onto Garrison Road. The building offers, as mentioned, a mix of unit sizes, one bedroom, two bedroom, and three bedroom units. Just to preempt a question, there's approximately 12 three-bedroom units being proposed. They're the corner units on each of the floors. The subject lands, in our opinion, are of appropriate size and configuration to accommodate the scale and massing of the proposed building without creating adverse impacts on adjacent land uses. The development provides adequate outdoor and indoor amenity space for future residents, including landscaped areas and individual balconies. Next slide, please. So the design incorporates varied building materials and windows facing the at-grade parking and sidewalks. Sidewalk connections between the parking lot and apartment building and public road encourage active transportation and support integration with the existing streetscape. This approach contributes positively to the character of the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment seeks to rezone the property from residential R1 to residential multiple 2 zone. This zone will support the proposed 6-story apartment dwelling on the site, and the zoning bylaw amendment also broadly implements the land use vision for Garrison Road as defined under both the current and adopted official plans, which identify the corridor for higher order growth and intensification. The only relief being sought from the RM2 bylaw is, as mentioned, the parking reduction, which is to incorporate more landscape into the parking area. And the application also rezones the adjacent natural heritage features within an environmental protection zone, which will ensure their long-term protection and enhancement. Next slide, please. And along with the application, there were a number of supporting studies submitted, including a stage 1-2 archaeological assessment, environmental impact study, shadow analysis, wetland water balance, environmental noise feasibility study, tree inventory and preservation plan, conceptual landscape plan, functional servicing report, and traffic impact brief, and heritage impact assessment. Overall, the studies concluded that there are no negative impacts associated with the development of the subject lands, subject to the recommendations in these reports for the implementation of the plan. Next slide, please. So in summary, the application proposes the construction of a 6-story apartment building with at-grade parking to accommodate 100 residential dwelling units. The proposed development supports prescribed growth targets, broadens housing choice, and represents an efficient use of serviced land in the urban boundary. It's located within a corridor designated for intensification. The site is an appropriate and encouraged location for growth. And before I get to questions, I just want to make a recommendation that council also consider not applying the holding provision to the site. And there are 2 reasons for this. I'll just run through briefly and we can discuss as part of the question period. So first, the sanitary sewer infrastructure is regional, and the region has not considered or identified any concerns with respect to capacity to service the proposed development. And the second is that the peer review that reviewed our functional servicing report did not make use of the town's available flow monitoring data. So the town has flow monitoring data which gives a more accurate picture of the flow along Garrison Road, and it was not incorporated into the peer review as the assessment of our impact on that servicing. So for that reason, we'd request that the hold not be lifted without a more accurate review of the functional servicing report. And that's just my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Questions, sir?
Godfrey. Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship, and through you to Mr. Godfrey. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. You did touch on the one thing that I was going to ask, which was with respect to the hold provision, and certainly I'll have some questions for staff later when we get to the report. But my question is, what's your anticipated timeline for construction?
Well, it's tough. Now, as I was before council last time I was here, it's tough to predict those timelines right now because of the housing market. So they'd like within 2 to 3 years. And it's just as the market, the trade situation settles before they can kind of make that informed decision and make the clarity to go forward with construction.
And if I may continue, Your Worship, thank you very much for that clarity. Just with respect to the hold, the information that we do have in a report actually mentions that these issues are anticipated to be resolved hopefully by 2027. If we did implement the hold based on our staff recommendation, in light of the timeline, is this is this more of like a flexibility type request, or would it hold the project up, or would it follow your timeline? I get where you're coming from. I'm just trying to glean out where you'd sit if we did this.
So through you, Mayor. My opinion is that there's other tools to address it, for example, the site plan stage, and it really depends on the timing of other developments coming online. So the modeling right now looks at everything as though it came online all at once at the exact same time, and without using that flow monitoring data to then create an accurate depiction of what that would look like. So I think there's ways of looking at later down the line at the site plan stage, but putting a hold on it, I think, chills the property in a way that puts the onus on the landowner to try and address these broader sanitary capacity issues that are a collective issue rather than the single landowner. And the wording of that holding provision in particular puts the onus onto the individual landowner to address those broader sanitary issue capacities that I think are being phased in. And as you mentioned, I think what I've heard is the region is looking at this and it's moving forward. So it's just that individual onus on individual landowners was a part of this broader picture that's looking at everything coming on immediately. So.
And one last question, if I may, Your Worship. That's a really good point, and I appreciate your input on that, because this has been a challenge along the Garrison Road corridor, right into Ward 2 and further east on the road. But I'm just curious, you did raise some other alternatives, some things that can be addressed. Not to put anyone on the spot here, but were these discussed with staff? Was there any back and forth about these options? And where did it go, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, through you, Mayor. We have not been able to resolve this with staff yet, so we're trying to coordinate a meeting with the region and with staff. My understanding is that this approach that we've provided was agreed upon at an earlier iteration of staff based on the flow monitoring that council does have and the town does have, and as a more accurate depiction of what the capacity is going to be. But that approach changed over time. So, and as you know, we have other developments along the Garrison Road corridor, and I don't want to go off topic and speak to those, but it's an approach that we had been pursuing and then has changed. So we're not able to set up those meetings yet to resolve the discrepancy between the region and the town's opinions on this, given that it is regional infrastructure and it's the town putting the hold on the region's infrastructure.
I appreciate that information. I have some questions for staff with respect to that as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Godfrey.
Anyone else? Councillor Christensen.
I'd just like to address the question that I asked about the connection with the DSBN and the fact that it provided no comment to staff. Do you have any information that may justify? You mentioned the 3 bedrooms, so there's 36 or 12 units and 3 bedrooms, so there's possibility of 24 kids there or more. So
Yeah, through you,
just
sorry.
those bedrooms.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. We don't have that information yet as we think through the programming of the building. And just to note, I wanted to step back a second, just give an introduction to the client a little bit, that they do have experience providing affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So there is that capacity within the development team, but those decisions have not, as the market kind of evolves, have not been figured out yet. And just to note, the DSBM information is new to us. We haven't received those comments yet, so we haven't had time to.
It's just another factor.
Yeah, exactly.
But sort of the social impact factor.
But my understanding is the DSBM typically they bake these forecasts in as these come online and then allocate growth based on those forecasts. But unfortunately I don't have more information on the unit makeup. Yep.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. Quick question on the loading waste area site, front or back, thoughts?
Through you, Mayor. So could we maybe share the slide just to, and I just want to clarify, I appreciate where staff and council are coming from. It's typically from an urban design perspective, you don't want to have those things at the front. There's a little bit of a different approach with this building because we have that naturalized water course there, and there's quite a lot of vegetated screening from the street, that it's put where it is most efficient for collection and for the building. And that's ultimately what resulted in that decision. So I think there is some context that kind of mitigates some of that streetscape element. And like if this was a building fronted towards directly against the street from an urban design perspective, I agree that would be a terrible thing to do, to have waste collection right in front of the building. But because you do have that naturalized corridor, it does have that screening, and that's an untouchable corridor. That's the craft drain. So that is a corridor that will remain naturalized, and it's quite full of fairly large trees right now as well.
Thank you, and if I may continue, and thank you for the clarity. So that was a no? Is that
Through you, Mayor, we could explore it. It changes the efficiency of the site plan. It would likely have to go to the very rear of the building. So we can explore it. We may have actually had it down there at a certain point. I can't remember. It's gone through so many different variations, but we can explore it. It's not a hard no. It's just giving the rationale for why it was there, why it works in this context, but we can look into it.
much appreciated? Thank you.
Anyone else? So just on that point, if you look at the site plan, you've got a spot, a little notch at the bottom of the building, the south end of the building. I would think that might be a spot you could put it, but I'll leave that to you and staff. You know what council thinks.
Yeah, I through you, Mayor, yes.
So in terms of the, so just to reiterate, your client does have experience with affordable housing units.
That's right.
You know that we have a affordable housing CIP.
Through you, Mayor, no, I didn't know that.
Okay, then you should be looking at that, and then
Sure.
you also know that because this is a building that exceeds the current height, there will be a community benefit that could be applied to affordable units. So those are all things that you're prepared to take up with your client?
Certainly, yes.
And, okay.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, we can, one of the clients is here tonight who's in attendance listening, so we'll have a discussion afterwards, and we can, as they do the pro forma, they can figure out what's going to work for this building.
Okay. Those are the questions I had. Thank you very much, Mr. Godfrey.
And through you, Mayor, I know you had a question earlier about the buffers, and I thought I'd just speak to that quickly. So when we did the EIS, some of these features in the hierarchy of environmental features are more important than others. So the PSW is the one that we're zoning the buffer, the 30-meter buffer on, and that's the one where it, from a provincial protection perspective, is the most protected, and we're putting a restoration buffer there. The other wetlands and other woodlands are of a much lesser quality. They're very disturbed. They're full of buckthorn. They're not in a state that I say requires the same level of protection, and that setback is then based off of the results of the EIS. So the EIS recommends this, provided we do a restoration enhancement plan around the building and within those buffers. So that's the trade-off. We're moving in an area where it's disturbed, it's manicured lawn, and then we're adding a restoration enhancement plan around it.
Okay, yep, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, then at this stage, I'm going to ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application. And when you come forward, could you please give us your name and address? Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to lower this, thanks. Thank you.
Is that better?
I think that's the way. Okay, thanks. Good evening. My name is Emily Schneider, and I would like to take this opportunity to respond to the development of the property located at 825 Garrison Road, Fort Erie.
Your address is?
My address? 139 Stanton, you mean my home address?
Your
My home,
address.
139 Stanton Street in Fort Erie.
Go ahead.
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Thank you. As I said, I would like to take this opportunity to respond to the development of the property located at 825 Garrison Road in Fort Erie. I am directly affected since my property at 851 Garrison Road borders directly right next to the property now being developed. The plan is to build a 6-story, 100-unit residential apartment building with 150 at-grade vernacular parking spaces. The entire property is not large enough to build a 6-story, 100-unit apartment with 150 parking spaces, due to the fact that the entire eastern side of the property is not suitable and cannot be used for development. It cannot be used because of marshland. Therefore, you are limited to the amount and size of the property in the area and the space that are left for development. Due to this limitation and circumstances, this entire development was totally forced to locate to the western side of the property. The parking lot and the apartment buildings are both very large, close, and facing each other. As a result, they are not spread out, but are crowded, cramped, and squeezed together totally on one side of the property, which is the western side. This development is too restrictive and does not allow for more open and easy access of movement, namely people and vehicles. The design of this development with this huge residential building and parking spaces will have a long-lasting harmful effect on my entire property. I would like you to take the following issues and concerns that I will outline below into consideration because they are important and need to be brought to your attention. Access. At this present time, there's only one access to the entire development. For safety and emergency reasons, you need to have more than one access to get in and out of this complex. Parking lot. My property is going to be greatly affected with the location and building of 150 parking spaces which directly face and stretch entirely along one side of my property. It stretches from the south to the north. This situation will cause and present numerous negative effects in various ways. Due to this very close proximity of the parking lot, as a result, my entire property will be constantly exposed on a continuous basis to a large volume of cars, traffic, coming and going. We're able to see and hear them. Also, my property is always exposed to extremely large volume of dangerous toxic fumes, exhaust from cars left running. Coming from this parking lot, I will be exposed to a constant and continuous noise from a large volume of cars that are running, starting, stopping, coming, and going at all hours of the night and day without any relief. Also, this constant and continuous traffic disruption destroys the quiet and peaceful atmosphere of my property. A 3-meter buffer zone would not be enough to separate me and the parking lot. You need to have more than 3-meter space in order to make a major difference and improve the situation. A fence, trees, and bushes do not always offer the best solution and protection. Wind factor. The location of the parking lot and its openness, which is directly adjacent to my property, allows the wind to blow the toxic fumes directly in the direction of my property. To mention, we have very high winds in Fort Erie, over 80 miles an hour. How and where the winds blow, the direction is also important to consider. Snow removal. Snow removal presents a huge problem and concern with this development. The apartment building and the parking spaces take up a very large amount of space, which leaves no room for snow removal and depositing of huge piles of snow from the parking lot on the west side of the property. And it stretches entirely from the south to the north, which directly faces and borders my property. In Fort Erie, we have bad winters and we have a lot of snow. Deposit of this huge volume of snow against the 3-meter buffer zone does not provide sufficient large enough space for a large volume of snow. Water. The melting snow and the runoff of these huge piles of snow would cause severe major flooding problems, especially if the water drains onto my property. This would have a tremendous, lasting, severe, destructive effect on me. Large volumes of rain in the spring from the parking lot could also cause a problem with poor drainage. Also a concern with a buildup of chemical spills of oil, salt, and other toxins on the parking lot. When it rains, toxins from the parking lot would run off and contaminate the soil on my property. The parking lot is constantly exposed to the extreme weather conditions of wind, rain, and snow. Concern is, does this development have a good adequate drainage and runoff system to handle these extreme weather conditions? Health issues. From this huge parking lot, you have fumes and exhaust coming from all these cars on a continuous, constant, and consistent basis. These toxic fumes are extremely dangerous and a severe threat to our health and safety and a cause for concern. Now, with constant and consistent exposure to these toxins, you can develop severe health problems, i.e. breathing, cancer, COPD, and asthma. This is also an environmental issue, which affects all of us, and exposure to these toxins, to these toxic elements can leave us with life-threatening illness and death. Conclusion, as a result of this development, my property would be devalued and make it more difficult to sell to prospective buyers or rent in the future. especially if I have a lot of issues with the development next door. It would also inhibit and restrict me to the type of development I can and cannot build on my property later on. I have some suggestions. Redesign the building plan by building the apartment across the back of the property facing north and south and not west and east. Place the parking spaces in front of the building and not on one side only. Spread out the parking spaces in various locations on the property and not concentrate it in just one area. It is very crucial and essential that you take all of these factors into consideration and implement the necessary changes required to protect the interests of everyone involved before you make your final decisions in this development. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding in this matter.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schneider. Do any members of council have any questions of Ms. Schneider? Thank you very much.
I'd like to say, too, that when you look at the picture of the development, a great majority, a lot of the property is used for parking on the west side and also on the south. And that west side is where it goes right. It borders my property. So I have the parking lot, that entire parking lot bordering my property, and that's really going to affect me because of the cars and the fumes and a lot of other factors that are involved in having a parking lot with that many cars. And I'm concerned about that. A lot of these things, these reports, they're fine on paper, but when you actually put them into practical use, they're not always what it seems. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And your letter to the town is part of the report package.
Thank
so we
you.
have that as well.
I sincerely hope that you look at it. And like I said, most of the property, the majority of the property is used for parking, basically. The other side, you can't use on the east side because of marshland and trees. So a lot of the property is not being utilized to its full extent, and because of the situation on the east side. So everything had to be pushed, everything had to be pushed over to the western side, which affects me.
Yeah, we
Thank
got
you.
that. Thank you very much. Do anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? We'll be breaking up the place, Ms. Schneider. Mr. Patton, is there anyone in the digital waiting room?
Your Worship, there's nobody in it.
Nada. Either for or against or indifferent? Okay. So, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of the application or address council? Should have sent your notes in. I think we know what you're going to say.
Been here before.
So it's William Thomas, 4665 Village Drive. I'm sorry I got here late, so I had to listen to Devin's report as I was driving in, and I heard the comments following, and so I want to commend yourself, Mayor Redekop, because I heard you asking the questions about affordable housing to Devin, and I want to commend the developer for being open to the idea, the possibility of including affordable housing. I know from experience that it is possible to have integrated housing in a development such as this. You know that I don't speak in favor or against a development such as this because it doesn't impact my property in any way. And so I always sort of listen to the concerns raised by those within closest proximity, but I did want to say that if I was going to speak in favor of a development, I would actually consider speaking in favor of this one because I think that it does meet some of the housing density goals for the town as outlined in the not yet passed official plan, but it also does at least consider And it sounds to me like would be favorable to the idea of affordable housing being integrated into the development. And so I usually get up and talk about how I really wish I had heard that. And so when I do hear it, I really want to get up and speak to that. And I also want to commend the two presenters because they got in front of this council and were extremely prepared and presented not only the facts of the matter, but also came with the relevant data, which we all know in past presentations was not done. So with that.
So thank you very much, Reverend Thomas. I think it's fair to say that all members of council are concerned about the affordable housing issue.
Yes, no, I only centered you out because I actually heard you raise it. I do know that this council is, I think it's commendable that this council is so tuned into the need for affordable housing and is, and have on many occasions raised it. So I do recognize that.
Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions of Reverend Thomas? Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Mr. Patton, I presume there's no one else left in the, there's still no one in the digital waiting room? No, Your Worship. Okay, then I'm going to declare this public meeting, sorry. Clerk, have we received any late communications relative to the matter?
No additional comments were received.
Okay, then I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, and then we're going to move to PBBS 10-2026. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dubanow. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. And through you, I think it's Mr. Edward who's... Not Mr. Edward, God, I'm gone blank here. I apologize. I can see who's there. I'm just probably getting his first and last name mixed up, but I apologize for that. Through you, Your Worship, to staff, I'm just wondering, first I want to extend my appreciation to staff for the outline on the holding provision requirements. It was a very thorough explanation, and that was phenomenal. When I brought that motion up at council, that was essentially what I was looking for, was some detailed explanation, timelines, who are the responsible parties are. I think that was excellent. But I'm just wondering, in light of Mr. Godfrey's presentation and comments this evening, and perhaps having an opportunity maybe to find a compromise here, or maybe another method or another mechanism, certainly the concerns he raised with respect to the flow monitoring. There's similar concerns I've heard with respect to holding provisions elsewhere in town. I'm just wondering if maybe staff can maybe commit to that conversation and maybe even provide a memo or something before the bylaw comes back, just so we have some clarity that we're essentially doing everything we can, Your Worship.
Mr. Morton?
Thank you. Through you, maybe if I could just ask for some clarity, I guess, as a starter. Are we only addressing the capacity concerns? That's what this question is with respect to?
If I may, Your Worship, Mr. Godfrey actually raised, essentially he had raised a concern that there hasn't been a good timing for the town, the region, and the proponent and himself to sit down together and look at this, address the concerns that have been raised, and perhaps provide some alternatives that may address the town's concerns, as well as meeting their development objectives. And I'm just asking for staff to commit to that and perhaps give us some information when it does come to the bylaw stage, just so that we can have some clarity and assurance that everything has been looked at, that we were given the best possible information.
Sure.
And that there aren't other alternatives that we can look at.
I understand. Through you, yes, I can make that commitment. I guess just a few things. So I haven't been involved in those conversations. There may be conversations happening in the background with development engineering and infrastructure services that I'm just not aware of. But I can absolutely commit to facilitating those conversations and preparing a memo either to confirm the recommendation that's being made in the staff report, or with an update that, development engineering and IS are satisfied that this can be addressed through site plan control. And I just want to manage, I guess, expectations. I don't have the ability to force them to make that call. So that would be a discussion, and ultimately,
Understand that you're just being asked to,
yeah,
if staff will commit to at least having the meeting and discussion with the applicant.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Dubanow?
No, that was it. I just, again, I want to extend my appreciation to staff for all of the detailed information. Like I said, I've been concerned about holds and some of the timelines related to them, but we do have fantastic staff here, and certainly, I thought the rationale was good, but certainly I appreciate where the developer's coming from and the timelines and the certainty. So getting everyone in a room together to discuss that and perhaps even find another alternative that's satisfactory to the developer would certainly satisfy me. So I appreciate that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Christensen?
I just wanted to comment on, I guess, the care and with respect to the to Ms. Schreiner and her concerns. I just wanted to speak to my vision, my own mental vision. I'm not really that important in the greater scheme of things, but I really want to see Garrison looking like a boulevard eventually.
Yeah.
So I thought that the layout, rather than going across, for a whole bunch of reasons, just going across the front or anywhere was something that is conducive to a much more attractive streetscape. And so I wanted to just comment positively on that by providing housing, and in fact, the fact that we're looking essentially at family-friendly housing, that's really quite important.
Yeah.
So.
Anything further? Councillor Christensen? Anything further?
No.
Anyone else? There was in our package under public comments, there was a message regarding the drainage issue. And I presume that that's something that is going to be dealt with. That will be dealt with as part of the site plan approval and the stormwater management?
Through you, that's correct. So those matters would be addressed through the site plan control stage. There is two other items that I wanted to circle back on as well, if you would entertain that. So to answer your question, yes, that would be addressed through site plan control. With respect to the height, I was actually referencing a setback that was being maintained rather than the actual height.
That's fine. Yeah, you don't need to add stuff that we already know.
Sure. And okay, that's it then. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Mr. Morton. Done an excellent job.
Okay, thanks.
Sometimes too much is more than enough. One of the prime lessons a lawyer learns is stop asking questions when you're ahead. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to call the question on the recommendations in the report. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So that takes us to the consent agenda. Can I have a mover for the consent agenda, Councillor Lewis? Are there any questions or comments with respect to any of the reports contained in the consent agenda? Particularly uninquisitive group this evening? All those in favor of the recommendations in the three reports? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to building, planning and building and bylaw services, Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning, Building, and Bylaw Services Subcommittee is now in session. We have no presentations or delegations. We have no reports. Are there any new business or inquiries? We have none. Are there any questions about the business status report? There being none, I turn it back to you, Your Worship, in the shortest subcommittee meeting I've chaired.
Looked like you were trying to drag that out. You weren't comfortable in that territory. That takes us to infrastructure services, Councillor Lewis.
Well, if anyone's going to bring it to a stall, it will be me. Infrastructure Services is now in session. There are no presentations or delegations. There are no reports. Any matters of new business or inquiries from members? Seeing none, we do have 10.3.1 memorandum. Do I need a mover for that?
Yeah, to receive that, so I'll move it.
Councillor Dubanow. Any questions or comments with respect to that? I do have a comment, but I'll wait until other members have had a chance.
You know you're the chair.
That's why I'm waiting till,
You're not supposed to comment if you're the chair.
well, I can give up the chair.
Don't get, yeah, you could, but go ahead.
There isn't.
You're the BIA rep,
Yeah.
council's BIA rep, so interested in your comment.
It's always an interesting comment. What I have noticed, and I mentioned it to staff as well, there is a typo or an error on page 2 where it mentions under Erie Road and Cambridge parking lot parking regulations, it says free parking for the first 2 hours. The last BIA meeting, there was considerable conversation from the business community about upping that to 3 hours, and I understand staff is aware of that request, but if we are moving in that direction with the advice being requested by the CBIA, we may want to change that from 2 hours to 3. And that was to meet the mainly the service businesses, the spas, hairdressers, and some of the restaurants that were requesting that change. Any, Councillor Flagg?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. Will this information, this will come back to us if staff deems required to go into policy?
Yep, I'll, staff want to comment on that one? CAO?
If there are changes adopted with parking parameters for these lots, we would bring back the parking bylaw. We'll have an update so that if they choose to adopt this, we will bylaw, so the bylaw will come back for any changes.
Councillor Flagg?
Nothing further, thank you.
Your worship?
So then, just for clarity, unless staff is given different direction than what's in this memo, you're going to come back with no change to the 2-hour free parking that's currently provided for on Erie Road and, is it Cambridge? Yeah. Is that correct? CAO?
Mr. McQueen?
So I may defer to the clerk on this, but if council receives the memo, it essentially is just receiving the information. If council amends the recommendation to adopt the provisions as Councillor Lewis has amended based on the feedback, then that would give us direction to bring the bylaw back with those revisions.
Okay, so Councillor Lewis hasn't amended anything. We would have to provide direction with respect to this.
Correct.
2 hours or 3 hours. Okay.
And I also wanted to clarify that I believe 3 hours is consistent with Bridgeburg and Jarvis Street as well.
Do we know if that's the case? I think it should be consistent. So if it's 3 hours on Jarvis, then it should be, okay, so I would move that we amend the recommendation regarding free parking for the Erie Road and Cambridge parking lots to 3 hours.
Any questions or comments to the amendment? Councillor Christensen?
So this would be my question would be, so that this is both parking lots and on street? So Ridge Road would be?
I'll defer that to staff, but my understanding is yes.
If that's the case, then I would ask that consideration be given to looking at Ridge Road, because I parked there today and it's 2 hours.
Do staff any questions or comments from staff?
And I don't know whether there's an issue, but it's...
We'll
So-
find out.
Yeah.
Mr. McQueen, or you're locked?
Yeah, I'm locked in. There. I'm not sure about Ridge Road, but yes, we can do a check to see, and then we'll make the adjustments if needed.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question as it relates to the commercial hotel. It says an overnight parking pass is available for $50 per room, valid for a 6-month term. Is that $50 for a 6-month term or $50 per month?
For that question over to staff.
The mayor, that would be $50 for the 6-month term.
That's a heck of a deal. So I think my initial concern to that is if the commercial hotel then, or any of the commercial properties that would be able to take advantage of this, then charges each of their rooms $15 or $20 per night for parking. It seems that that's something that we are giving them a pretty favorable option on.
Your worship?
Yeah, I mean, considering that it's $2 per night for overnight parking, but $50 per room for a 6-month period, like that's just pennies per night. That doesn't make sense. I just assumed it was $50 per month, and I think it should be $50 per month. So if necessary, I would move to amend that to make it clear that it's $50 per month for a commercial parking pass.
Okay, and just before that, can we get clarity from staff? Because I believe that is a potential typo. I know there was some discussions with Hotel Philco regarding the Erie Road Cambridge lot that I think drove this, but if there's any comments from staff, certainly feel free to jump in at this point.
Through you, Chair, I agree. It's also the 31-day overnight pass is also $50 a month, so it should be consistent per $50 per month for 6 months.
Does that clarify?
So, yeah, so we don't need an amendment if it's clear to staff that it's $50 per month. Okay, that's great.
Okay, so no amendment. Any other questions or comments with respect to this one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That carried. Any questions to the business status report? Going once, going twice, seeing none, gone. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis. That takes us to Corporate and Community Services, Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Corporate and Community Services in session. No presentation, delegations, or reports this evening. Any new business or inquiries? I don't see any questions on the business status report. And unlike IS, Your Worship, we will do this quickly and efficiently.
Yeah,
Turn the chair back to you.
I commend you and the planning chair for your efficiency. Yeah. Okay, so there are no closed session items this evening. Scheduling of meetings, Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. The Heritage Standing Committee of the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee has a meeting this Wednesday, March 11th at 1 p.m. here at Town Hall in Conference Room 1.
Anyone else? Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Christensen.
The Crystal Beach Business Improvement Association is meeting at 6 p.m. Wednesday, the 11th at the Crystal Ridge Library.
And Councillor Christensen.
The Fort Erie Public Library Board is meeting on the 17th at 4:30 at the Centennial Branch of the library.
Any other meetings? If none, then Councillor Dubanow, I'm at you now.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Council and Committee adjourn at 7:24 p.m. this evening.
All those in favor? That is unanimous.